IHC वारनि जी वॾी महिरबानी जिन असांखे मिठे पाणी जी टंकी हणाए ॾेई विया आहिनि। इमाम हुसैन चैरिटी वारनि जी वॾी महिरबानी जिन असांजे नवाब जे ॻोठ में मिठे पाणी जो टंकी हणी ॾेई विया आहिनि। असांखे हिते पाणी जी वॾी तकलीफ़ हुई, हिननि असांजी मिठो पाणी जो मुहैया करे असांजो तकलीफ़ ख़तमु करे विया। शुक्रिया IHC।
Jiddu, I need to tell you a secret. I had an exam today and I cheated on the exam, and to be honest, I feel like it's eating me up inside as if it's haram.
Your father used to do the exact something and would always get in trouble. But you have done it now and cannot go back. I don't know if it is haram. Khair inshallah.
Thanks, Jiddu. Jiddu, I wanted to ask if it's halal to buy lottery tickets. They're so cheap and we could make a lot of money.
I don't know if it is halal or haram, but never think about something like that again.
Okay, I was just asking. Jiddu.
تعبتني, what do you want now?
I just wanted to ask if the sweet has beef gelatin is halal or haram.
You're supposed to check it before buying it, not after. I don't know if this is halal or haram.
Okay.
What now? I am trying to relax. Why do you keep asking me? تعالي هنا الخاطر الله. Just go watch Ahkam SOS. Any question you have, they can answer you. You can call them, message them, anything. Ask as much as you like. They can answer any question from any marja, okay?
My family. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. This is a live show. We're taking your questions, so if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please send them in via the WhatsApp. The number should be there below. The QR code in the corner there, you can scan that, it'll take you straight to the WhatsApp page. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section, and inshallah the technical team will be able to send them to me on my iPad, and I will be able to discuss them with the Sheikh. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Ma'ash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing, Sheikhna, this
Alhamdulillah.
evening? MashaAllah.
All fine.
MashaAllah. Sheikhna, we had so many questions last week, and we still have questions coming in. So inshallah, let us get cracking. And some questions from last week, Sheikhna. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.
Should I always lower my gaze, or only if I feel attracted to a woman, or when her aura is uncovered?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. It's a Quranic instructions for the mu'minin and the mu'minat, both male and female, to lower their gaze when it comes to the haram scene. So in that instance, one should lower their gaze to avoid looking the haram look with lust, temptation, the bad intention, in other words. So it's that moment in which one should be precautious and take care and be watchful to avoid committing the sin.
No problem. From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. In wudu, do we have to rub our arms with water, or can we just submerge the arm in water? Good question. Sheikhna, just putting your arm into the water, is that okay? Or the tap will be running and then they'll put the arm through the tap, or do I have to
That's
wipe
mentioned as well, yes.
It's
that
possible.
you can, yeah, exactly, yeah. Especially those who have problem in terms of unable to wipe, for example. It's mentioned in the fiqh in detail.
So the wiping, is this mustahab? Is this recommended? Or
No, the ayah says فَغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ. So you have to wash your face and you wash. But there's an option that you can do the same thing with the water, with the face as well, under the tap.
Okay.
And the arms under the tap as well. I'm not sure if it's for somebody who is in illness situation or
Okay.
general, so it depends really.
But there is a
There is a second
situation.
option, yeah.
Yes,
Exactly,
okay,
yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. If a
Assalam.
person says, Wallahi, to not do something and breaks it, but later they do it again, do they have to fast for 3 or 6 days?
If it's basically, yarhamkumullah.
Thank
Basically, when somebody uses Allah's words as a qasam, so wallahi, billahi, tallahi, these are the official shari'i qasam.
you. Yes.
And you break this qasam, this oath, you have to pay 10 poor individuals as kafara, for 10 miskin.
Fair. From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalam.
Can I slap myself in the morning so I become more conscious? I guess in the morning sometimes we need to wake ourselves up and so forth. Is that okay?
There should be no problem with it as far as it's not that, let's say, self-harm to that extent. It's just to wake you up.
Fair enough.
You know better yourself, you know.
This was a question from last week, and it was Imam Hussein alayhi salam poisoned?
Yes, indeed, he was poisoned by Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan through the wife of the Imam alayhi salam, with the name of Ja'da or Ju'da, when she was given money and the promise to marry Yazid ibn Muawiyah.
Okay.
So she did this so that she can get in through the castle of Muawiyah and Yazid. But eventually, they said, you did this to an Imam, you know, a man like Hassan ibn Ali alayhi salam. So you could do it as well to your new husband and Yazid. So they rejected her anyhow. So she lost both worlds, dunya and akhirah.
Wow. And damn to hell. Sheikhna, from WhatsApp, if a dog licks my body or clothes, how should I purify it?
You just have to wash it with water. That's the way in which.
So in today's day and age, let's say a dog licked my sleeve, my trouser sleeve. Washing it means I put it in the washing machine, or washing it means I just have to put it underneath the tap a couple of times and scrub it, or how do you
Either way will work.
Yeah.
As long as you have running water, purifying that najasa, it should be fine.
And if we don't have running water, can we
You have
use,
qalil water
yeah,
as well, yeah.
2 or 3 times?
It depends really, because sometimes you have najasa like blood, for example. You have the urine. It depends really. But anyhow, alhamdulillah, we have running water now.
Yeah.
You can easily put it under the tap and then wash it, or in the washing machine.
From YouTube, Salaamu Alaikum, Sheikhna.
Alaikum assalam.
Do Imams hold higher statuses than the Prophets?
You see, Allah Azza wa Jal created the best humankind, and they are Muhammad wa al Muhammad sallallahu alayhim.
Yes.
And this is mentioned in the hadith books from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, specifically from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Imam Baqir salamullah alayhi, that they are the best of Allah's creation, the 14 ma'asum as we have. Of course, the best one and the best of the creation, Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Then Imam Ali alayhi salam, then Imam Fatima Zahra alayhi salam, and all the way to Imam Mahdi salamullah alayhi, Ajjala Farajuhu Sharif. They are the best of the creation. And then the prophets come, of course, after these 14 infallibles. That's what we believe in, because they have to be the best and the role models. And because they have that status of being the wasi, awsiya of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you have the best prophet, and you have the best vicegerents as well. And then you have the prophets afterwards.
Fair. Sheikhna, when it comes to university, there are many other programs that we have that allows us to, send messages, emails. Sometimes there's study groups. Now we've got here from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. There's online rooms to study together with our students on camera. Is this possible? You can message too. So something like a Zoom meeting where everyone's got like a webcam and talking, and the lecturer may be giving a lecture or so forth, and they're all there and they can see each other and they can WhatsApp each other and so forth. Is this acceptable in Islam?
If it's within the boundary of the Sharia, in other words, it's a professional, let's say, class or meeting and session without arouse of lust, temptation, banter, let's say, whatever would be causing some kind of haram acts, for example, gestures, for example, that would be allowed. It's just like attending a college or university session, meeting room, for example, a seminar, as long as let's say the male would, as I've said before, lower their gazes. They won't look intentionally with lustful lookings. Then it should be fine, of course. And the females, if she's a Muslim, of course, she preserves her hijab, observes her hijab, so that should be fine.
From YouTube, Salam Sheikh, who poisoned Imam Hassan alayhi salam? So I guess someone might have just come in now and just got the last couple of sentences of what you were saying. So who was the one who poisoned Imam Hassan alayhi salam?
Indeed, Muawiyah ibn Abu Sufyan is the one who plotted
The culprit.
to finish off the Imam alayhi salam,
Yeah.
so that he can basically rule and to give the Khilafah to his son Yazid as a result. And of course the peace treaty or
Yes.
musalaha or the ceasefire they had, and the conditions in which the Imam wrote to be implemented by Muawiyah, but sadly he said, I put this mu'ahada, this peace treaty under my feet, and I will not implement any of them. So he actually betrayed Al-Hassan ibn Ali ibn Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa
anything from that treaty.
Sadly, yes. And eventually led to the killing of Imam Hassan alayhi salam through his wife Ju'dah.
From YouTube, can I be normal friend with girl?
The Holy Quran states, وَلَا مُتَّخِذِي أَخْدَانِ. Khadan means to have a friend from the opposite gender in the haram method and form. Yes, you can turn it into a marriage contract, be it short or long term. In this case, you can be as friends until you graduate and you decide to stay with this marriage, or let's say, if it's a short term, then you can separate after, let's say, 2 or 3 years. So the best way is to do it in the halal way, through the marriage. Because the nikah is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And the sifah, of course, is the satanic way of the shaitan, of course.
From YouTube, Salaam alaikum Sheikhna. What is Imam Ali alayhi salam's role in Tawheed?
Of course, the Imam alayhi salam, they are actually the ones in which they have interpreted the Holy Quran, interpreted the prophetic sunnah and tradition. He and his sons, salamullah alayhim, Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So, of course, in Nahj al-Balagha, in one of his sermons, he explains what the Tawheed is. So one can refer back to these sermons. That أول الدين معرفته, the first of the deen is to know. And then it goes all the way in terms of describing the sifatullah Azza wa Jal, Allah's attributes.
Yes.
And that it's a detailed topic, needs really a full session on how the Imam alayhi salam explains the Tawheed in his sermon in Nahj al-Balagha.
Quick reminder to all our viewers that we are taking your live questions. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, please send them in via the WhatsApp. The WhatsApp number should be there on the bottom. You can scan the QR code there in the corner. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section, and inshallah the technical team will send them to me. If you want to call into the studio and speak to the Sheikh, 0203 515 0199 if you are here in the UK. And if you're abroad, just call the WhatsApp number below, and inshallah you'll be able to get through to the studio. Sheikhna from YouTube, Assalamu alaikum. Is it possible to attend university providing you will pay interest on the loan? Riba is a big thing, Sheikhna, interest. Everyone charges interest in this country, in the West especially, because it's a capital incentive for them to make money on their money and so forth. So we have student loans for us to go to university and so forth, and they charge interest on it. Are we still permitted to go and get an education?
Well, the scholar says in overall, the ulama, that if you're compelled to do so, then you're allowed to pay this interest. And I've said before many times that if you have, let's say, financial difficulties, you can't buy, let's say, your daily needs, for example, food, drink, clothing, and let's say you're in debt, you're in debit. You can use, for example, your credit card, for example, your MasterCard, for example, and pay interest because you're in debt and your you need that money to live, basically. Sometimes you need to borrow this money to pay for your rent, for example. So in such compelled situations, the ulama would allow for the one to pay interest. Some would say pay with the intention of gift and so forth. Compelled situations, yes.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. This is from YouTube. Was Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr stitched up in a donkey and burnt alive? I haven't heard that. Are you familiar with the death of Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr?
Yes, Muhammad, rahmahullah, ibn Abi Bakr.
And this is the son of Abu Bakr.
Yes, the first
the
leader
brother
of
of
the Ahlul
Aisha.
Sunnah. Exactly. I mean, because when Abu Bakr was killed and assassinated,
Yes. No, Abu Bakr, I think he died a natural death, no?
it seems to be he was killed.
Oh,
Seems to
interesting.
be, yes. After 2.5 years of leadership, which wasn't really worth to attack the door of Fatima alayhi salam and to wound Fatima alayhi salam with a fatal wound.
Yes.
And miscarriage her son Muhsin salamullah alayhi to get for 2.5 years. It's not worth it. Even 25 years is not worth it. To participate in such a great calamity and misery against the prophetic house.
So his son Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr.
Yes, indeed, he was sent to Egypt to take the governorship of Egypt, but sadly, Muawiyah's plot always succeeds. Satanic plots.
Yeah.
So eventually, they took Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr and they killed him in this way that I mentioned.
Wow, really?
Yes.
They put him in a
Egypt.
donkey.
And I visited his grave. Yeah.
Wow, and they set him on fire.
Rahmahullah. Yeah.
Wow. From what YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
As-salam.
Are we allowed to pray for a Sunni deceased and how? Sheikhna, I'm sure you are aware, because it's very common in Pakistan, and I know it happens in Iraq as well, that you have family members who are not Shia. And they pass away and so forth, and they have a funeral, and the funeral is not of a Jafri school funeral and so forth. Are we still allowed to attend? Are we still allowed to pray the janazah? Are we still allowed to do Fatiha for those who are not in the sect of Shia Islam?
Overall, we have to see. It could be allowed. I'm not sure, so I have to, inshallah, go back and check. Inshallah.
Fair enough. From WhatsApp, is it permissible to play games of chance of all kinds on electronic machines, computers, without betting or with betting?
Many of the scholars will say it's not allowed because you're actually doesn't make any difference to pay on the cards or on the machine or on the app. You're actually playing with a tool or a game which is originally a gambling game. So anyhow you play it with any means,
Poker.
It's forbidden. Yeah, you have to avoid it.
Similar with, okay, so from YouTube, in regards to the interest we were talking about with student loans, similar with issue of mortgage, is it permissible to take out a mortgage in the West? May Allah bless you. May Allah bless you as well, whoever asked. We always appreciate your du'as.
Barakallah feek. Yes, indeed. For the first home, your first home, you're allowed. The ulama would allow for the one who is, again, compelled, is in need of, a permanent house, let's say, rather than paying such, expensive rents, especially those who live in London. They know the situation. One bedroom could reach to almost £2,000 a month rent. So yes, in this situation, as your first home, you're allowed to buy the house with mortgage and pay interest. For the second house, it's problematic.
Wow.
If you want to invest it.
Yeah.
So for the second house, no, there's an issue with it. But for the first, of course, you want to live in that house with the family, it is allowed. Although I've heard some of the Ahlul Sunnah would not allow it at all, even the first house, because you're paying interest, so that's haram. So I know some Ahlul Sunnah that they have the money to buy the house, but they prefer to live in a rented house because for them it's forbidden, absolutely, to pay any interest in any house. Yes.
Fair. From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Please, I'm memorizing Quran and I use my time as a doctor in between work to revise. Is it halal to revise while working time, knowing that I'm doing my best at work and my boss who is not happy? So someone here is doing hifadh, and maybe in their breaks or in between, shifts and so forth, in between their work, they may pull out a Quran and learn maybe one or two ayah and so forth, or familiarize themselves with the surah. Are they allowed to do this? And what if the boss, your employee, your employer isn't happy with you putting your attention somewhere else?
You see, many of the ulama mentioned that you have to follow the rules of, let's say, of your company or the place you work or you live. You have to abide by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically work rules when it comes to earning the halal income.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that even if it's to do with worship or reciting the Holy Quran or ad'iyah, either you do it in your lunch time, which is that's 30 minutes or 60 minutes, you have that time to recite, and you have that break of 15-20 minutes break in the morning, tea break. Otherwise, if it's within the working hours, you have to ask the permission from the boss or the manager. That I'm going to spend my, that's 10-15 minutes free time where there's no patients, for example, around, to read, let's say, whatever I like. So it has to be agreed upon with the manager of that company or the hospital and so forth. You have to respect the rules of the workplace.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalam.
How can we debunk atheism? Jazakallah khair. A very, very nice aqaid question. That's probably the first thing we learn in aqaid, isn't it, Sheikhna? Is the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and different theories and proofs to show the existence of Allah. So, atheism, what is a good way to debunk it?
Interestingly, this reminds me of a hadith that an atheist comes to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and he asks a similar question. The Imam says there was an egg was in the hands of one of the kids in that room. So the Imam takes it and he says, look at this egg, a hard eggshell, and inside it there's a thin
layer,
ahsan, and then inside there is a silver liquid, and inside that liquid there's a yellow, is it yolk?
The yolk, yeah.
Exactly. And they never get mixed with each other. And when it hatches, different colors of feathers would be shown. So he showed them how this was created. It wasn't created randomly, as they say, random process of creation. This has a maker.
Yeah.
So if for a simple ring, this has a maker, or a piece of paper, A4 paper, it has a maker. How come that such a gigantic universe and this complex and such a great creation of the human being and the animals and so forth needs a creator?
Yeah.
It's something out of aql. And I don't know how the scientists reached this conclusion that this creation was made out of nothing, randomly, just made up. Imagine that you have an iPhone 14 and suddenly the parts gather and you find this phone, for example, in your way, in the fields, for example, and somebody asks you where this comes from, you say it's made randomly, out of nothing. Aql and the reason would reject this kind of analogy or notion. It must be made. Everything is made by a maker. Everything. So the same applies to the creation of this universe and human being. You must have a maker. Without it, it means there's some kind of loss of aql or and somehow it's against the logic, definitely.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Can a woman masturbate if her husband is not available?
Not at all. It's forbidden.
Wow.
It has to be with the husband.
Fantastic. Sorry, my iPad just shut off here. And we're back in. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. From YouTube, can I eat cat food if I don't find anything to eat in the house? Yes, of course. You can have it with ketchup and mayonnaise. Sheikhna, cat food. If there's nothing in the house, can I eat cat food? Why would you want to eat cat food? Cat food.
Is it a meat-based?
Yes, most of it is chicken.
And made by non-Islamic, let's say, factories.
Sheikh, I have a cat and I've seen the food I give it. It is absolutely revolting. You do not want to be putting that anywhere near your mouth. It's like jelly and meats and stuff like that all mixed together with flavors and it's raw, it's not even cooked. And it's for animals. So
I mean, the Shari'i issue, if it was slaughtered by a Muslim, for example, that meat, it's a halal meat, that's a different issue.
yeah.
You have number two is the harm issue. Darar. Is there a darar if you eat it? Is it
Yes,
harmful?
you would definitely get food
Bacteria, for
poisoning,
example.
100%,
That's a scientific issue and medical issue.
Yeah, bacteria, yeah. 100%.
So that's the problem. You don't harm yourself if you eat it.
Wow.
So two, three issues that you have to consider before eating.
This one is from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Can I pay someone to do my assignment and tell my teacher that it is my work?
As I've said before many times, that Ayatollah Sistani, Hafidhullah, would say that you have to respect the law and the rules of
Or the institution.
Of the institution, of workplace, anywhere. You cannot cheat, you cannot trick others, and so forth, for reaching to some kind of, let's say, to gain money or to gain a position or even pass the exam. You have to follow the rules.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Could you please clarify on how should we wipe our head during wudu? Jazakallah khairun. Sheikh, the issue of masa on the forehead, on the head, some say it has to be like the water has to touch the skin of the scalp and has to go all the way up to the hairline. Some say no, just a little bit like this is enough. Some say you can even put your finger down and move the head like this and so forth. Some say you can go backwards, you don't have to go forwards. Some say from the side. Can you please clarify?
No, for the masah, basically it has to be done on the head, basically.
Top part of the head?
Yeah, even if you have a hair, that's fine.
Okay.
The scalp issue is to do with the ghusl of janaba. You have to make sure the water reaches the scalp.
So for
the masah,
on the hair,
yes, unless somebody has a long hair,
okay,
where you have to remove that long hair and then wipe on your head. It has to be on the head, even the hair. If it's even thick hair, that's fine. You don't have to reach to the scalp for the masah, deep scalp.
Another issue, the water's mixing. So what if there's so much water? For those who have short hair, shaven heads as well, when they do mas'ah, the water drips and mixes with the water on the forehead. Is that okay or is that not allowed?
No, that's fine because he has already finished washing the face. So he's now just do masah and walks away. Should be fine.
And do I need to do masah all the way to the front of the hairline or just a little bit on the top?
Just a little bit. What is known as masah.
A centimetre or so?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Just a bit there, enough?
Just a small masah, yeah.
Fair enough. From WhatsApp, is it permissible for a wife to dance for a husband with classical music?
Without the music in overall. Of course, Ayatollah mentions if there is like entertaining music would be haram. So it's better for the one to do it without music in anyhow.
Sheikh, if there's paper with the name Abdullah in Arabic, can we throw the paper away since it has the name of Allah on it? And what if it was written in English?
You have to basically either recycle it in somehow and not, because there's the name of Abdullah, Allah. So you have to make sure. And some ulama would say even the translation would be also ishkal. So best way is to recycle it.
Sheikh, we're going to go for a very, very short break. Join us after this clip. It's only going to be about 10 seconds and we'll continue our discussion here on Ahkam SOS.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures of scholars. Is it permissible to plant trees by or over
Islam
the
established based on peace and non-violence?
Is it permissible to collect donations for charity projects from
Is it permitted to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim countries?
Is there an issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, WhatsApp us on +44 7415 09 2155.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, this is a live show. We've had so many questions. We're still taking in your questions. If you have any questions that you want to send in, please send it via the WhatsApp. Numbers there on the bottom. QR code in the corner there. Or if you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put them in the comment section. And inshallah, myself and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer your questions. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Sheikhna from YouTube, is it obligatory to recite the morning and evening adhkar, the dhikr that we have in the morning and evening?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If it's outside the salah, because the dhikr inside the salah is wajib. You know, let's say subhanallah alhamdulillah and the third or fourth rak'ah in Isha, for example, or to recite the hamd, you know, quietly. These dhikr are wajib in salah. You know, you can't waive it and leave it. But in terms of the adhkar, let's say saying in the evening, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم after Maghrib Salah 7 times. These are mustahabbat. Or in the morning saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العظيم. Other adhkar, astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu 100 times after Fajr Salah. Or salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad 100 times in the morning. These are all mustahab acts. These are in a surplus addition to our amal of wajib.
Yes. So
to complete, in somehow to get that extra thawab and rewards, we do these adhkar. So it's just like a surplus you can add to your amal.
Sheikh, using the miswak, is that part of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam?
Yes, indeed, it is.
From YouTube.
Indeed, yes.
I think the toothbrush was actually based on the miswak. So when they invented the toothbrush to clean the teeth, they used the miswak, which was, you know, a stick, which it cut the end off, and you have these bristles that come out, and it's like a brush that's going in front of your teeth and so forth. Yeah. They actually use that as the prototype, you could say, for it. From YouTube, is it obligatory in Islam for us to maintain contact with uncles and aunts? Are we sinful if we never contact them? Good question. Sheikhna, we have this thing of Sulah Rahim, visiting family, spending time with family. We have this thing about even with friends, you know, to keep in contact with them and so forth. We have, you know, things happen. Sometimes people get upset. They stop talking to one another. We are, as Muslims, are encouraged to reconciliate between two parties and make sure that they are talking and that everything is well and so forth. So with family, you know, sometimes it always happens when, unfortunately, when a family member passes away or something, there's issues with who said what and inheritance, and we're not happy with this or with that, or we don't want to talk to these people or that people, those people, and so forth. Is this a sin that we stop talking to our family members, aunties and uncles specifically?
You see, to cut and sever the kinship with the relatives, it's forbidden, haram. يعني قطع الرحم haram. You can't cut and sever your relationship with your, you know, relatives, blood relatives. So you have to have some kind of contact, just to show that you're still in contact, by a text message, by a phone, I don't know, WhatsApp message. As I call it, أضعف الإيمان, you know, the weakest method of showing your iman in terms of Salatul Rahim. It's very important, especially if they are not really religious. With your conduct, with your action, with your akhlaq, you can attract them towards faithfulness, towards attending the majalis of Ahlul Bayt, for example. If she's non-hijabi, she might become once hijabi. We've seen this many times. You know, since my childhood, some people who never wore hijab, eventually by mixing with the mu'mineen and mu'minat, attending the majalis of Ahlul Bayt, they start to wear hijab, for example. So either they are sinful relatives or mu'min relatives. It's very important to have this connection and contact, so that you get the reward, number one, and number two, you would save them from hellfire. and you would be in trouble as well because you're cutting your ties with them, which is haram. So either way, one should have the contact with those individuals.
Sheikh, what about those that, for example, in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the life of Aimma, they had family members who were not supportive. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had an uncle that was cursing him and so forth. Did they ever stop talking to their family relatives?
No, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many times he advised them. He even made a gathering and I think a dinner for his family. When the Quran said وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, when he was sent with the revelation and the risala, he invited his relatives. I think there were 40 people. So he tried to attract them towards Islam, towards Tawheedullah Azza wa Jal. Of course, many of them refused. But anyhow, the Prophet was a warner. إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُنذَرْ, to warn them. If they reject, it's their fault. And if they go to hellfire, which indeed some of them went, it's their fault.
Fair. From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Salam.
Can I pray while I'm naked?
One of the conditions of salah that you have to at least to cover your private parts in salah as a male. You must cover the parts in which have to be covered in salah. And for the sisters, they have to basically wear that abaya or the chador for salah to protect their body, except their feet, hands, and face.
Fair. But Sheikhna, when praying naked, that's really an extreme circumstance, isn't it? For those who are in extreme poverty and cannot have clothes, or for those who, for whatever instance, they are captives in prison, or they are traveling and they've lost their clothes or something. Those are the only times you can pray naked. As in, if you've got clothes, if you've got distasha, or you've got a t-shirt and trousers and stuff like that, there should be no reason for you to pray naked. That doesn't give you the ability to pray naked, the choice to pray naked. Yes or no?
As you mentioned, there are special circumstances and situations where the one can actually perform salah, because لا يترك الصلاة بحال. You cannot leave salah just because that you don't have clothes. You have the tahara, you have the wudu, you have the ghusl. It's just that you're in a condition in prison, for example, the tyrant took everything off.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you can pray without, you can't pray because you don't have the clothing. There are certain conditions, way they mention the fiqh, how to pray in the state. You mentioned the fiqh
fair.
in detail,
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Salam.
If Muslims around the world follow the Quran and Sunnah, would Allah help the people of Palestine? This is a very, very good question, Sheikhna, because we have it a lot. They feel that the affliction that happens to the Muslims in dunya is because of their sins and maybe the sins of the ummah in general. Is there any truth in that, Sheikhna? Muslims who are suffering in the world right now, is it because of their sins that they are suffering?
You see, let's go back 14th century ago, when the Holy Prophet ﷺ, before his departure, he advised the Muslims in many occasions and mentioned this famous hadith in the books of Ahl-Sunnah and Shia. And the Sahih, they mentioned this hadith, very famous, that I leave two weighty or necessary things, the book of Allah and my progeny. Kitabullah wa atat ahl bayti. That you won't go astray if you uphold on these two, otherwise you will be, a'udhu billah, go astray. The majority of the Muslims did not implement the Holy Quran practically correctly, and they left Ahlul Bayt. They went after, the so-called caliphs, the Umayyad caliph, the Marwani caliphs, the Abbasi caliphs. We know their history in terms of the haram acts they committed, the genocide they committed against the Muslims, the Ashura, Karbala event. It's very, famous between the Muslims, because they left practicing and implementing these two weighty things that is mentioned in the hadith. The miseries eventually took place till today. So the best way is to go back to Kitabullah wa Itrat Ahl Bayti. When you go back to these two, implement them, you will inshallah win against whoever is your enemy, even if they are the greatest, they have the greatest power and weapon and means, you can win over them, but with this condition, to go back to Allah Azza wa Jal, the Holy Quran, his holy book, and the prophetic's progeny, family. Otherwise, things will remain as it is, if not worse now.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. How can we prolong our sujood? Jazakallah khairun. Prolonging the sujood, Sheikhna. This is a habit, I think it was introduced by Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, and it's normally the last sujood in the prayer that is prolonged. How do we prolong the sujood? What is recommended to do?
I think a man came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, I want to be next to you in paradise, or in that great position. Of course, nobody can reach Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's position from the people, but he would be able to get near to that. Or let's say, not state, but in that facility and that vicinity, and anyhow. So the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam to him that prolong your sujood, and you can mention dhikrs. Lots of adhkar mentioned about what to say in sujood. La ilaha illallah haqqan haqqa, la ilaha illallah iman wa tasdiqa.
Ya wali al-afiya.
Lots of ad'iyah you can recite in sujood, ask Allah Azza wa Jalla ad'iyah. You can prolong it in this way.
Sure. From WhatsApp, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Alaikum assalam.
Can I smell my wife's internal clothes to romanticize about her when she's away? You kinky. Sheikhna, this person's asking, can he smell his wife's internal clothes? I think he means underwear and stuff like that, while she's away, to romanticize about her.
What the ulama mentioned that it has to be like a face-to-face or over the phone. Let's say you have a live chat, video conversation. Other than that, with other objects, it's problematic. It has to be through by looking, let's say, or by talking directly to the wife, and the vice versa, and not by using tools around you. That's a problem. So you cannot arouse your lust by other tools than the opposite of each other.
I think it's more tasteful to smell her perfume, by the way. From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. At the time of the Prophet's death, was he given the choice of extending his life? Very, very good question. Sheikhna, we know that in dunya, if you are born, that you will die. And we know that with the prophets and A'immah and so forth, all of them were shaheed, were killed. Is this something that they accept? Or is this something that they can, choose that, no, I want to die later on, I want to live longer? Because we believe that the A'immah have wilaya as well, and they have some discussing the hawza of the Imams have the wilaya takwini and tashri as well on earth. And so forth. So when they pass away, sorry, I should rephrase that, when they are killed, is that them accepting their fate and their destiny? Or is it a choice from them that they want to leave this world and they want to return to their Lord? Or how does it work with death? The question here was, at the time of death for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did he have the opportunity to extend his life?
You see, initially, these are all qada wa qadar of Allah Azza wa Jal. So He chose for them the day in which they have to go back to Allah Azza wa Jal. And of course, they came to fulfill Allah's message, to deliver it, to warn people, and pass away ila Allah Azza wa Jal. So these are in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. Even the event of Ashura, that the Imam said many times that Sha'Allah an yarani qatila, that Allah's wish is to see me to be martyred and killed for His cause, of course, fi sabilillah Azza wa Jal. These are ajal, and Allah Azza wa Jal chose it for them. Of course, there are causes, the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jal, in which they have, in other words, they've hastened their killings, their death in somehow by this act of crime, act of killing Allah's representatives and proofs of Allah, Hujjatullah Azza wa Jal. So that's qada al-qadar. Allah Azza wa Jal chose for them to deliver this message, and then they are taken away by Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah يتوفى الأنفس حين موتها. So this is their fate and destination, and of course for them to go back to Allah Azza wa Jalla would be, of course. Dar al-Akhirah هي الحيوان. حيوان, as the Quran mentions. حيوان means real life. حياة الحقيقية. Of course for them is better. This dunya is just a passover. It's just a bridge they cross.
Sheikh, we've got about 5 minutes left, and we've got plenty of questions, so let's try and get through these as quick as we can, Sheikh. From WhatsApp, Assalamu alaikum. What is the history and evidence that Surah Waqiyah is suggested to provide a rizq and sustenance?
You see, each surah has its own benefits and mentioned for each surah. Now, to recite it outside the salah, you have some rewards. To recite it specific nights, like Thursday night, Laylatul Jum'ah, again, it's got its own rewards. To recite it in the salah, another reward. For example, I mentioned once that to recite specific surah, you would get this reward on the Day of Judgment, for example. So each surah has its own benefits, the outside of the salah or inside the salah. Of course, one should go back to, let's say, Kitab Thawab al-A'mal, to see, for example, or other books of hadith and the books of ad'iyah, to see which surah specifically gives specific, for example, reward, like mentioned, Surah Al-Waqi'ah.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum. Why only fish with the scales are halal? What's the reason that other fish are haram? Quickly, I'll tell you guys, it's because that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us. Secondly, fish with scales, I think majority of them are herbivores. They don't eat meat. And we as Shia, we don't eat carnivorous animals. So those are the main things. That's why we have those. From YouTube, can I drive a girl and boy that are drunk and doing something in my car as an Uber driver? Sheikhna, are we allowed to take drunk passengers as Uber drivers? I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, look, it's really at the discretion, isn't it, of the driver, whether they want to take someone who is intoxicated or not. However, is there a moral obligation for us to take people who are drunk, who could be a harm to themselves or a harm to others? You know what? Get in my car, I'll take you home, and you know, you'll be safe there and away from the public. What is the Islamic ruling? Should we drive them to their homes, or should we leave them where they are?
You see, it's their guilt. They are committing the sin.
Yeah.
I'm just delivering them to a specific location. It's their guilt, it's their fault, it's their sin. But of course, morally, I have to somehow advise them that this is not correct. This is not how you're supposed to be as a human being. You have to be a respectful person, muhtaram in the society, a beneficial person, not harming person to the society. So one should give advice if they can. Of course, you have to see that person, if he's a Muslim, if he's a non-Muslim. Try to be able to talk to them بالتي أحسن. وجادلهم بالتي أحسن. Use the best method when you talk to others.
Inshallah, still got more questions coming in. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. What is khums? Khums is 1/5 of the surplus money that you've made in 1 year. So 20% of any excess money that you have, or wealth, gold, clothes and things like that, which is like a tax that you have to pay. From YouTube, Sheikh, Assalamu alaikum. Where is Dajjal? He's not in my book.
We don't know. We have no knowledge about him.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. From YouTube, how can we follow the Ahlul Bayt? I think the best way, Sheikhna, is to actually read up on the hadith and so forth, their lives, their biographies, and implement the teachings. What would you say,
Exactly, to implement and to teach the others, as I mentioned last time, about the hadith of Muhammad alayhi salam. يتعلم علومنا ويعلمها الناس. To learn, practice, and teach others to practice.
From YouTube, when we offer our namaz, at the time we are offering it the imamat of our imam. How Imam alayhi salam is present everywhere? Can you please explain about this, please?
It's not clear, to be honest.
Could you ask that again? Rephrase your question. We don't really understand what you're trying to ask.
For next week,
and inshallah, we'll try and get that. From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. If you married a woman who was believed her husband died after years, he comes back, is the marriage halal and other children are also halal? Fantastic question, Sheikhna. And this might be the last question for tonight. If I'm married, you got a husband and wife, the husband went away, let's say he went for war, never came back, we don't know what's happened, we think he's died, or we got false information, he's passed away. The female mourns, she has it in the period. She now remarries and has children. And let's say 5 years later, the husband returns. I was in a coma. This happened to me, that happened to me, and so forth. What happens now with the marriage? What happens with the children that she's had with the new husband?
We have this in the history of the time of Ahl Bayt alayhi salam happened, in which they would reunite, the old husband with the wife. They would separate. Of course, there's a ahkam with this regard. It takes some time, so we leave it till later, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairah.
Ahsan. Thank you very much, Sheikh, and thank you to all the viewers for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. I still got loads of questions there, so I do apologize I could not get through all of them on this episode. However, these questions will be taken over to next episode, which will be on Monday here on Imam Hussein TV. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, please send it in via the WhatsApp. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook Live, put it in the comment section and the technical team will send them to me. And inshallah, we'll roll all those questions over onto Monday's episode, 7 p.m. here on Imam Hussein TV3. Inshallah, stay safe and we'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Hussein.